Hey, what's up everybody? It's your girl Amanda, the Buzzed Artist, and today we're going to be painting this super wintry barn scene. I am super excited to show you this. It's got some fir trees, it's got some snow, and it's got a beautiful little red barn hidden in the wintry mix. So get your supplies and come meet me. We're going to go ahead and do this. Alrighty, we'll be starting off with an 8x10 pre-gessoed canvas, and the paints we'll be using will be a red, a yellow, black, blue, and white. And the brushes we will be using is a 3/4 inch flat wash brush, a number 10 shader brush, a number 10 filbert brush, and a number 0 detail round brush. You can find a list of all the materials we're going to be using in the description below. Alright, so we're going to start off with our 3/4 inch flat wash. Going to dip it in some water, get it nice and wet. Then I'm going to dip it into my blue. And I'm going to add in a little bit of white because we're going to be starting off doing our sky. So once I have it evenly coated, I go ahead and start applying that color horizontally, adding water as I go to spread that color out. And don't forget to do the sides. Now I go in and grab some white and I intersperse that on top of the wet blue paint. This is going to give the appearance of clouds. Then with a clean brush, I'm going to go back in with some white and add in a tiny bit of blue, the tiniest hint of blue, because now we're going to work on making snow. And I'm using my brush broadside down and just using the tip to do some straight edges for the hilltop, as well as the broadside to just spread out that color. Now I'm going to head over to my number 10 filbert brush, going to wet that, and I'm going to dip it in some blue, and I'm going to mix that in with some white to get a nice pale blue. And I'm going to start to just make some little patterns in the snow, some little sweeping motions, and I'm going to blend that in with the white that we laid down previously. And now I'm going to go back in with a darker blue, and I'm just going to go ahead and add that in. This is just to help make some shadows and to just add a little bit of depth to the snow. Now I'm going to head over to the number 10 shader brush, wet that in the paint cup. Then I'm going to dip that in some blue and yellow to make some green. And I'm going to add a little bit of white to that as well, just to help with the opaqueness. Because next what we're going to do is make some trees. So I'm going to take my brush with the tip down, and I'm just going to go ahead and make a straight line, and then make a series of horizontal lines to represent the fir trees. Now you can see this is pretty much me doing this over and over and over again, but when it comes to making fir trees, the bushier the better, so you just want to make more and more lines, one on top of the other, doing this over and over again. So, and I'm varying the lengths of my trees, so some of them I'm starting them a little higher than the rest, or than the previous one, and I just make that line and then turn my brush horizontally and start making the boughs of those trees. And like any kind of fir tree, I like to make mine kind of cone shaped so it's thin on the top and then it slowly fans out at the bottom. Pretty easy. So I'm going to attempt to do quite a few trees here, just to give that illusion of a very heavily forested area. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a bit of blue and a little bit of black because I do want to get a darker shade of green, because I'm going to go ahead and make another fir tree, kind of nestled here in the other trees as well. I like to experiment with different shades of green with this, because like any forest, you're never going to see one type of green. There's just so many other types of greens you can play with. So be sure to experiment with this part. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a light version of green by just making yellow, adding a bit more white to it, and that blue. And I'm just going to go ahead and just speckle the remaining trees that I've done with this color.
Now I'm going to go ahead and make some more trees, but these ones are going to be perspective, so they're going to be a little further away from the actual scene, so I'm going to make them smaller, probably not as detailed, just to give that illusion that it is far away. I'm also doing another tree, and this one I'm going to do a very dark, so I'm adding a lot more blue to that green color, and I'm just going and doing the same brush strokes like I was doing before to create my trees. So now I'm going to go ahead and add in some more white to that green we were just using. It's almost like toothpaste. And I'm just taking my brush, using the tip, and just very lightly pushing the color up. This is just to create a little bit of a color depth in the background, just to give that illusion that there's a lot more trees actually in this picture than there are. And now I'm going to go in with a lighter color with some yellow and white and just speckle parts of the tree here. Again, I like to do different colored trees, you know, and every bough kind of has little different colors going on with it. Now I'm going to take my detail round brush, I'm going to wet it, and I'm going to dip it in some red and a little bit of black. So I'm going to make like a cranberry color, and I'm going to start making my barn. And I'll include a stencil of this barn that I'm painting here in the description below, so please be sure to check that out. But I'm just going to put the barn to the right portion of the canvas so it looks like it's nicely nestled in this wintry scene. So I'm going to make that outline with that cranberry red, and then I'm just going to go ahead and fill it in with my brush. Now there's a side of the barn that needs to be a slightly darker shade of color. This is just a perspective thing, and it's shading 101. So I'm just going to add a little bit more black to that cranberry red, and I'm just going to go ahead and fill that part of the barn. This is all an illusionary trick just to show that this is a three-dimensional looking object. So once I got that, I'm going to also do an outline on the leftmost portion of the barn to show a shadow, because later on we're going to be putting snow as well as a little door. And that's just done by 2 lines perpendicular to each other. Now I'm going to add some white with a clean brush, obviously, and I'm going to just outline the left portion of the barn, and I'm going to make a slanted roof, and I'm just going to go ahead and add in that white paint to show that this roof is laden with snow. This does require several coats. Now I'll take the number 10 filbert brush, wet it, and I'm going to dip it in some white. And this is now going to be my opportunity to just go in and laden the areas with the illusion of snow. So I'm going in, I'm partially covering a little bit of the barn, and I'm also going to attempt to partially cover some of the blue that we previously laid down. Okay, now I'm going to take my number 10 shader brush, and I'm going to add some green and a little bit of black to that green, and with a little bit of blue. So I do want to create this nice dark green. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to that, and I'm going to go ahead with my tip and just very lightly make little lines, and I want to create like the illusion of grass kind of sticking out of the snow. It's pretty cute, and I'm doing this very lightly on my brush. So once again, I'm going to take my shader, I'm going to dip it in some black and in some red, a little bit of orange, a little bit of yellow, because now we're going to be making brown. Then I'm going to use the tip of my brush and make a tree. So when it comes to trees, you're just doing lines with the tip of your brush. The brush does a lot of the work here. So I'm just using the tip of my brush, and I'm very lightly gliding the color up and down, and I'm making branches. Like I said before in my tutorials, branches, always think about making the letter Y. All your branches, when they're coming off of each other, they kind of form this Y shape. So always consider that when you're making branches. Next, I'm just going to take my number 10 shader, add some white to it, and I'm just going to go ahead and start to partially cover the fir trees with the white paint. So this is to give that nestled look. And then I'm just going to go and shade so I blend everything together. Now what I'm going to do is I want to create some snowfall, so what I do is I just take some white and I add a lot of water to it, coat my brush, and then just take the bristles and flick it back and release, and that creates this really cool snow-like effect. Next, I'm going to take my number 10 shader and I'm going to add some white to it, and I'm just going to go and speckle the fir trees with the boughs with snow. Now I'm just doing the same motions like I was doing when making the boughs themselves, which is turning my brush horizontally and just adding the white in speckled areas. I don't want to cover the entire tree, but I want to give that illusion that it is just brimming with snow. Now I'm just going to go ahead and add tiny little details here and there, just covering up some areas. And then I'm going to go and add a little bit of a white snow on the sill of the barn. And that's it.
If you found this tutorial helpful, please be sure to give it a like and to subscribe to my channel. Smash that like button so that you can see more helpful tutorials from me in the future. Alright everyone, talk to you later. Toodles! Hey you, do you have any other ideas of what other paintings you would like for me to do? Comment below and share. I'd love to hear your suggestions.